Joe Louis had one of the greatest heavyweight careers in boxing. Formerly known at the time as boxing's GOAT, with a 69-3 record with 52 wins by KO. Joe Louis, at the end of his boxing career, with the help of his lawyer, Thurman Gibson, pulled off one of the biggest heists in professional boxing. They quickly formed a promotional company and quickly signed the top 4 heavyweight contenders to exclusive contracts after relinquishing his title and announcing a tournament to replace him as champion. We see heists all the time in professional sports, in different forms. Whether it's Joe Louis finessing the sport of boxing, Ben Simmons finessing the sport of the NBA after sitting out an entire season and filing a grievance against the 76ers for $20 million, we see lots of players get the bag only to go Casper for whatever reason. However, I don't think many people talk about or realize enough about the planned heist that almost changed the National Football League, similar to that of Joe Louis in boxing. A scheme planned out by Tom Brady and the owner of the Miami Dolphins, Stephen Ross. The scheme involved Brady fake retiring and eventually becoming an executive with the Dolphins and having minority ownership of the Dolphins. After that, Brady will force a trade to Miami and then unretire and quarterback the team in 2022. As great as Tom Brady is as a quarterback in the NFL, this is not the first time he tried to finesse the league. Deflategate remains one of the most controversial scandals in NFL history. Brady was suspended 4 games back in 2016 after being convicted of ordering the deflation of game-used footballs before the AFC Championship game against the Colts back in January of 2015. I could just only imagine how the NFL would look today if Tom Brady's second scheme actually worked. It's time to talk about TB12 on IGTG12. Please subscribe and catch up on all my other It's Good to Gamble videos. Let's begin. This current offseason in the NFL was like no other ever seen in history, with the influx of movement around the league. One of the biggest moves and or impactful decisions was Tom Brady announcing his unretirement that was about 3 weeks long. It took everybody off guard, and for me, for all the good reasons, being able to see my favorite sports athlete playing another season. It was a cherry on the top to a wild offseason that started with Aaron Rodgers' decision to sign a $150 million extension with the Packers for over the next 3 years. That was followed by an unexpected trade of Packers wide receiver Davante Adams getting traded to the Raiders to reunite with his former college teammate in Derek Carr. Russell Wilson requested a trade from the Seahawks finally, and was dealt to the Broncos in a mega deal in exchange for draft picks, quarterback Drew Lock, and tight end Noah Fant, defensive end Shelby Harris. Another big trade was wide receiver Tyreek Hill getting traded to the Dolphins after a standstill with the Chiefs in contract negotiations. This was the Chiefs' #1 wide receiver who had won a Super Bowl with the team and was part of 4 straight AFC Championship appearances. The Dolphins also acquired Cedric Wilson, Chase Edmonds, Raheem Mostert, etc. However, the Dolphins were very close to making a big acquisition during the regular season prior to the offseason. According to John McClain of the Houston Chronicle, the compensation in a potential Deshaun Watson trade between the Dolphins and the Texans was agreed to. Miami's owner, Stephen Ross, had approved the trade but wanted to see Watson's legal issues resolved before the transaction took place. Of course, at the time, Deshaun Watson had 22 accusations of sexual misconduct. The compensation agreed would include 3 first-round picks in return for the quarterback. Watson's preferred destination was the Dolphins because of the former head coach named Brian Flores, and of course, it's Miami, the lifestyle, the glamour. Unfortunately for the Dolphins, Watson's legal issues were not resolved, and the Dolphins turned their focus on plotting their master plan of bringing head coach Sean Payton and quarterback Tom Brady. An off-season splash of his own a year prior by joining the Tampa Bay Buccaneers during COVID and winning his 7th ring the same season, Tom Brady and the Buccaneers were set out to defend their crown. Unfortunately for the Buccaneers, they realized early on that it was going to be a tougher task and a roller coaster of a season. With the off-the-field drama, injuries, these parameters may have impacted Tom Brady's interest in the heist. Let's break down this roller coaster of a season for the Bucs. Tom Brady had an MVP caliber season, no doubt, leading the league in passing yards and leading game-winning drives against the Bills in overtime and against the Jets in a game full of controversy, in which we will discuss in further detail coming soon. One of the big marquee events during the season was Tom Brady's visit back to Foxborough to face his former team in the New England Patriots, whom he had played on for 20 seasons. Going up against his former coach, Bill Belichick, with their new quarterback and Mac Jones proved not to be an easy task, as the Patriots were able to confuse Tom Brady, knowing him like a book. Tom Brady, however, was able to decode Bill Belichick and the Patriots onto a victory in a W column. Although the Bucs defense was decimated since week 1, they were able to withstand injuries because the offense was humming and firing on all cylinders, that until the loss of Chris Godwin due to a torn ACL, which was our number 1 wide receiver in yak yards and in general. Shortly after that, the game against the Jets would officially change our season for the worse. During the 3rd quarter, wide receiver Antonio Brown pulled off his jersey and stormed off the field in the middle of a game, waving towards the crowd. After the game, head coach Bruce Arians said that Brown was no longer a Buck. Till this very day, we do not know what really happened on that sideline that resulted in the transfer of events. According to Bruce Arians, he told Antonio Brown to enter the game and he refused to, prompting Arians to say, "Get the F out," prompting AB to storm off. Antonio Brown's version was a little bit different, saying that he had taken a seat on the sideline to rest his injured ankle, and Arians ordered him back on the field, and Browns responded by saying, "Coach, I can't," and then Coach responded by saying, "You're done." Antonio Brown also shared text messages on social media of his exchange with Bruce Arians. Let's face it, Brady was the main reason why Antonio Brown was on the team to begin with, and that's because of his friendship with Brown that was developed during his short stint in New England. We had to know that this transpiring of events at this Jets game separated the locker room, and Tom Brady was not happy. Even as a quarterback as great as Tom Brady, he couldn't win a chip with this depleted roster. There was another minor incident that took place on the field during a play in which Bruce Arians came on the field and karate chopped his own player, which was very alarming. At this point, it was clear a lot of turmoil was going on in that Bucs locker room, and that seemed to be the case with reports of friction between Tom Brady and Bruce Arians. Rich Orgenberger's report stated that while Bruce Arians was rehabbing his Achilles in the early mornings, offensive coordinator Byron Leftwich and Brady would work on the week's game plan, and Arians would later come in and take a red pen and X out the work they've done. The day of the NFC divisional round of the playoffs, reports started to swirl about Tom Brady's retirement. The Bucs were set to play the Los Angeles Rams in a game in which they trailed 27-3 in the third quarter, only to have the Rams imploding with self-oriented mistakes, leaving the door open for a Bucs comeback. Soon as we knew it, the game ended up tied 27-27. However, the Rams kicked the walk-off field goal to win in the final seconds, set up by a big 44-yard play from Matthew Stafford to Cooper Kupp, who was in man-to-man coverage. A couple weeks later, after breaking the algorithms that reported on a Brady retirement, Brady finally did retire temporarily. Brian Flores was the head coach of the Miami Dolphins for the last 3 seasons, ironically coming from the Bill Belichick coaching tree. Back when Flores took the job in 2019, the Dolphins had one of the worst rosters in NFL history, getting outscored by 34.3 points per game. At the time, no other team in history had been outscored by 27.5 points per game. However, Flores was able to get that team to 5 wins and getting the respect of his peers and even some Coach of the Year praise. This previous season, the Dolphins got off to a shaky start due to injuries and a tough schedule. They started off 1-7 with a 7-game losing streak before flipping that season over completely, winning 7 straight games. A lot of people thought that second half surge was just enough to quiet the rumors of Flores being on the hot seat. Owner Stephen Ross thought otherwise by firing Brian Flores on Black Monday. "I made a decision today to part ways with Brian Flores," Dolphins owner Stephen Ross said in a statement. This sent shockwaves through the NFL universe, but nobody was more shocked than Roger Goodell when a big fat lawsuit was filed by Brian Flores alleging racial discrimination in the hiring process across the league. Brian Flores specifically named the Dolphins, Giants, and Broncos in the lawsuit. In the suit, Brian Flores alleged that Bill Belichick mistakenly sent him a congratulations text on getting the Giants job, which was meant for Brian Daboll, who secured the job 3 days before Flores went to interview for the job. Flores also alleged that his interview with the Denver Broncos was a sham, with GM John Elway and CEO Joe Ellis, who were part of the interview process, showing up an hour late. He also said both Elway and Joe Ellis were baked, as if they were drinking the night before. The suit also alleged that owner Stephen Ross offered him $100,000 for each of the team's losses in 2019 in hopes of improving draft position in that upcoming draft. The goal was to lose every game as possible to draft highly regarded quarterback Joe Burrow with the number 1 pick. Joe Burrow at the time was regarded as a franchise changer, while Tua Tagovailoa's Miami current quarterback had concerns with his health going into the draft. The Dolphins tried desperately to trade up with the Bengals, but the Bengals declined respectfully. The Bengals obviously was smart hanging up the phone as they went on to make the Super Bowl in Joe Burrow's second year, while the Dolphins were stuck with incompetent quarterback play from Tua. This left 200-year-old Stephen Ross in a very desperate position to improve and enhance the roster. My theory is that when the heist was discussed with Brady and Peyton and Stephen Ross, the Flores firing was the first domino that needed to fall. There's no evidence that proves that Sean Payton was indeed aware of the plan or not. But similar to how Brady was involved in a scheme on the field with Deflategate, so was Sean Payton with Bountygate, which happened under his watch from 2009 to 2011. The Bounty program paid players who knocked out the competition and opposition by injuring them to win games. It was the Bountygate that ended the career of Arizona Cardinals quarterback Kurt Warner when he absorbed the big hit during a playoff game against the Saints. Kurt Warner never played another game after that hit. Brett Favre was pretty banged up in the NFC Championship game as well. Saints head coach Sean Payton was suspended for the entire 2012 season without pay for his role in the scheme. It was the first time that an NFL head coach was suspended. Both Brady and Sean Payton were already involved in the biggest controversies in NFL history with Deflategate and Bountygate, so it does not surprise me that the two wanted to get together in a heist of their own. But the next domino that needed to fall was the retirement of both Tom Brady and Sean Payton. Ironically, head coach Sean Payton announced his retirement from the Saints a week before Tom Brady announced his retirement from the Buccaneers. The Saints had struggled throughout that entire season without their former Super Bowl winning quarterback in Drew Brees, who retired the year prior. The Saints were juggling quarterbacks, especially after Jameis Winston tore his ACL. And the Saints went on to miss the playoffs with a 9-8 record and were projected to be sitting over $74 million in salary cap. This was a clear motive for a Sean Payton retirement from the Saints to move on to a much better lucrative situation. The report is that Stephen Ross offered Sean Payton a 5-year contract worth $100 million to become the next head coach of the Dolphins. An assistant coach who was going to come along to Miami with Sean Payton confirmed this report. This deal would have made Sean Payton the second highest paid coach in the NFL behind Bill Belichick. The plan was indeed in development. The same anonymous assistant saying everything was agreed to and pretty much done for us to come along. The Dolphins were going to offer the Saints a first-round pick for Sean Payton and in turn offer Tampa Bay a second-round pick for Tom Brady. The next step to make this heist a successful one was getting Tom Brady to retire. Somehow, in that process, Brian Flores got wind of the deal that was going down and the heist that was going down and filed his lawsuit the same exact day that Tom Brady announced his retirement on February 1. The thought was Brady and Payton would not want to go to a dysfunctional organization in the midst of a game-fixing investigation and a legal matter. Flores was right. The lawsuit failed one of the biggest power move heists in NFL history that would have changed the entire landscape of the NFL as we know it. Sometimes I sit back and I reminisce and imagine how the league would have looked right now. The full plan was that Brady and Sean Payton would connect, in which they would both retire after Tampa Bay moved on from Brady. Brady would announce his unretirement, with Brady allegedly taking a role with the Dolphins as a high-ranking executive with ownership. Then Brady would force a trade to the Dolphins to play quarterback. Sean Payton would have then joined him in Miami and be a head coach. Unfortunately, Sean Payton and Tom Brady never made it on the plane to Miami.
Any truth to the reports that at some point you were interested in becoming a part of the Miami Dolphins in any situation, in any circumstance? Any truth to those reports, Tom?
About me going to
joining the Dolphins in any capacity?
I mean, it's again, I had a lot of conversations with a lot of people, as I've had for the last 3 or 4 years in my career, about, you know, different opportunities when I'm done playing with football. So, you know, I kind of made a decision of what I'd like to do. You know, I'll get to be in the game of football, and I think for me the most important thing is where I'm at now, and you know what I hope to do for this team. That's been my commitment to, you know, this team and organization. It's been so much fun for me to come here 2 years ago. It's been almost 2.5 years now, and it's been an incredible part of my football journey.